there's only one girl for me. A pity that I have to dig her up whenever I want attention. God, you feel so good. Don't even get me started on this taste. He was a rapist and a murderer, a megalomaniac psychopath utterly devoid of empathy and completely unbelonging to civil society. So naturally, he became a politician and enjoyed great success. The boy was too young to understand why he wasn't allowed to play with the kids from uptown, so one day he snuck out to go swimming with them. That night, he hung limp from a tree, lit by the crackling light of burning crosses. After I told him my wish, the genie reminded me of the rule against killing someone. I stared at the breakup text from my ex once more and looked at the genie. Oh, you don't know what locked-in syndrome is, do you? Everyone else hiding in the barn was becoming unhinged and hysterical at the constant pecking on the walls from the birds outside. Except for me, who knew Morse code and knew that they were warning us not to leave this place, as that thing was right outside. Watching a true crime documentary with my friends, I couldn't bear to look at the screen. Every artist is embarrassed by their early work. But I beat you! You don't own my soul, shouted the old man at the gates of hell. Satan replied, My dear Johnny, I let you win and take that golden instrument, so your pride in victory would bring you here all on your own. I asked my husband if he would still love me if I were a worm. As he said yes, relief washed through me. Now I know he'll still love me when these things wriggling inside my head take full control. On the brink of death from starvation, we wondered who would be the first of us to give in to temptation and eat the meat. So to protect our vegan ways, someone threw the beef jerky overboard to get rid of the temptation. So when the hunger pains became too much, we ate him first. I'll never forget the look on my daughter's face when I admitted that I could not stop myself from killing. A look of absolute relief that she was not alone. The disease I inherited meant that soon I wouldn't even be able to recognize members of my own family. Running and stumbling through the woods as the full moon steadily rises, I only hope that I can get far enough away from them. No eating or drinking in the labs is what my teacher always has said. That's the sentence that first ran through my mind when I saw the markings H2SO4 on the bottle and felt my tongue and throat start to boil and carbonize. I watched my 6-year-old son dig a hole on the beach, thinking he was just building a sand castle until he called me over. Inside the pit, there was a tiny skeleton, and he said, "This is where Mom buried me 7 years ago." Our cat started coming home in the morning, utterly exhausted and refusing to eat. I put a camera on his collar to see what he was up to. I sit, white-faced, watching the footage of mine and a dozen other cats hunting a deer like wolves and dragging the carcass back to a lair filled with bones, some clearly human. For months now, I've been messing with my neighbor by dressing up like my wife and taking a shit on his lawn in full view of his doorbell camera. I couldn't believe it when he snapped and shot her in the driveway. My poorly conceived plan was working out better than I could have ever imagined. As the archaeologists explored the underground pyramid, they were astonished to discover a modern car in one of its chambers. In another room, their linguists roughly translated the message on the wall to, "It takes a shape from your memory, then feasts." Disgusted by the food my mother packed for me, I handed my lunchbox to the homeless man outside of my school. When class ended, I saw him on the ground, foaming at the mouth. When my dad forgot where he put the wrench, everyone stopped and stared. When deemed incompetent in the bunker, you were put to use as much needed protein for the remaining survivors. When I got stranded in the middle of the ocean, I thought dehydration was the worst of my worries. The giant eyes beneath the nighttime surface made me think otherwise. She tied me to the bed and assured me she'd give my manhood a royal treatment. My excitement turned to dread when she brought out a miniature guillotine. He was a rapist and a murderer, a megalomaniac psychopath utterly devoid of empathy and completely unbelonging to civil society. So naturally, he became a politician and enjoyed great success. "Call this number," the doctor whispered to my wife, "and for $100,000 they can find your husband a transplant liver as soon as tomorrow." Later that evening, I overheard my wife asking someone on the phone how much she could get for a fresh set of kidneys or a human heart. After learning about having healthy boundaries in a relationship, I decided to broach the subject with my girlfriend. "I'm sorry, Jen, but when you try to leave the house, it makes me feel uncomfortable," I said, as I locked the basement door. I will never forget the smile he gave me before I killed him, because no matter how much I screamed and honked, he never moved from the tracks. I'm so happy with the procedure my wife had done, as every part of her feels so tight and firm. Embalming really was the right option. The first human neural link experiment wakes up to a team of medics, asking him how he feels. "Better than ever," he hears someone else respond through his mouth. The whole class went quiet when I told them how to know when someone is overdosing. Mom always says to never call an ambulance unless it happens, too. I thought everyone knew that. I took one last look at the others at the party, smiling and enjoying themselves as I opened the door to leave. None of them heard the quiet hiss of the gas stove I left on. They always say that the value of an artist's pieces goes up when the artist dies. Now that I know where he lives, my collection is about to skyrocket. I hold my breath as I wait to see if the training worked or if my dog will bark at the shadow passing underneath the door. As he begins to growl deep in his throat, I cry as silently as I can, pulling out a knife to silence him before the whole damn horde finds our hiding place. I could have sworn I locked this, she thought aloud as she drunkenly entered her apartment. You didn't, replied an unfamiliar man's voice from the darkness. I had been so excited for the apocalypse and the fall of society. As I die slowly of dehydration, though, I just wish that I had bought spare parts for the water filter rather than my second and third assault rifle. I rushed home, hoping my son was still there after seeing the headlines from his school. As my car pulled into the garage, my gaze was met with the busted lock of my gun safe and a single note in his handwriting. Our walk-in dehydrator can dry out over 1,000 pounds of food in a matter of minutes. After the events of last week, though, we're required to do a full head count before turning it on. And I will never be able to eat beef jerky ever again. My wife thinks it's weird that I save baby teeth. To me, it's one of the few upsides of being a mortician. A herd of hungry pigs can completely consume a human body in less than an hour. Jack eventually learned it was a bad idea to teach his herd people were delicious. After her husband passed away, I finally got to sleep with the woman I've loved for 50 years. She wasn't aware of his death until the next day, when he was found with his face removed. God, why won't she stop crying? My wife yelled in anguish after being woken yet again. What can I say? I'm a people pleaser, I thought to myself an hour later while I stored the shovel back in the garage. Seeing my lost little boy's desperate eyes looking up at me from the bottom of the well, I cry out to the rest of the search party, he's not down here, and watch as those eyes lose all hope. I pushed with all my strength, every muscle in my body tensed as I gave birth. The baby finally entered the world with a scream. I was jolted awake from my dream to my wife screaming. I followed her gaze down, horrified to see my prolapsed intestines spread out in the middle of the bed. Can't believe I have to share the elevator with the likes of you, the CEO said as he saw the janitor coming in with empty garbage bags before the doors closed. When the doors next opened, the janitor stepped out of the empty elevator, dragging behind him 2 full garbage bags. Honestly, it's disgusting watching you eat. I knew it wouldn't take much to send my bulimic daughter off crying. But I wasn't about to waste all of this garlic bread. I had always had a strange fantasy about being awake during surgery, which is why I didn't tell the doctor I was resistant to anesthesia. I didn't get either thing I came in for, as I watched the doctors sit around for an hour, then try to tell me they'd removed the tumors. After years of wandering through the apocalypse alone, I was overcome with joy to finally see another human being. Being an exterminator is tough work, but it's so satisfying to finally finish the job. Unable to save her, I endured the worst pain and helplessness that I'd ever felt as I watched the wild-eyed man snatch my 3-year-old from her car seat and run off. With me pinned to the steering wheel, the Good Samaritan knew that with the intensity of the blaze, he could only save one of us. A pretty girl on the train handed me a box of chocolates with her number on top of it. She gave me a shy smile and got off. Excitedly, I forced myself to wait a bit before messaging her. When I hit send, the unopened box of chocolates suddenly began to beep. It was nice to see that manners still existed in a disaster, as the young man let me take his place on the last escape pod from the space station. Just as the doors closed, I heard him say, "Those things only have an hour oxygen supply in them, and I'd rather be killed by the explosion than slowly suffocating in a small box." My wife said our newborn was just fussy when she cried loudly at the sight of me, but things never improved. Last night, her first words were the name of the woman I killed in college. As an avid backwoods hiker, he wasn't frightened by the scurrying of an animal outside his tent. But when he unzipped the flap and shone his flashlight into the darkness, he illuminated the crouched bodies of human men creeping toward him on all fours. Sir, after examining the wreck, we can conclude that it wasn't actually an iceberg that sunk the Titanic. Those were claw marks. When asked about what the worst part of being a conjoined twin is, I usually just joked about how much more control of our limbs my brother has than me. Now, as we stand here on the edge of a bridge, his suicide note tucked safely in our pocket, I decided not being able to make my own decisions was much, much worse. My 5-year-old was complaining about people who stare. I told her she should politely ask them to stop. She marched me to the vent in her bedroom ceiling and said, "You do it." Everyone fears death, which naturally made me a hero when I finally dispatched of him for good. It only took until the first supervolcano, ash settling heavy in our lungs and stomachs, to realize that some things exist for a reason. "Squishy squished the buggos," gleefully cried the child. We'd gotten along surprisingly well with the giants, until they had a kid. I discovered a new kink where I just like to watch my wife with all these other men. There's something seductive in the way she gracefully slices them open, and the intense look she gives me when she rips out their organs. My lab partner Caddy took ages to open up, but the more she revealed her inner beauty, the deeper I fell in love. On graduation night, as I knelt to propose in the dissection lab, a voice yelled, "What the hell are you doing with that cadaver, kid?" My. A rich man was cheating on his wife with one of the residents of the mansion, who tried desperately to tell her. But the wife simply brushed her off, saying, "Oh, stop meowing. I already fed you." My wife kissed me goodnight, but her tongue didn't stop sliding down my throat. By the time I could scream, it was already in my lungs. As my eyes adjusted to the darkness of the basement, I saw a corpse sitting in front of me, mangled beyond recognition. Only when I was unable to breathe did I realize I was in front of a mirror.